Welcome back to Wild Unknown. A silver fox steps cautiously toward a human hand. It does not run. It does not bare its teeth. Instead, it pauses, then quietly leans forward, waiting to be touched. At first glance, it looks almost indistinguishable from a domestic dog. But appearances can be deceiving. A wild animal can recognize your voice, accept food from your hand, and even form a bond with you. That does not make it domesticated. Taming changes one individual. Domestication changes generations. Hidden throughout history are a handful of wild animals that almost rewrote their relationship with humanity. Tonight, we will discover how close they really came. Number 8. Wild boar. The animal that can move in both directions. At dawn, a wild boar moves through the forest floor. Its shoulders are heavy, its coat is coarse, its tusks catch the first light as it pushes through wet soil in search of roots, insects, and anything else worth eating. It looks nothing like an animal that belongs beside humans. And yet, humans have already crossed this line once. Domestic pigs descend from wild boar. The transformation did not happen because the animal suddenly lost its instincts. It happened because wild boar already possessed several traits humans could work with. They are intelligent, they are adaptable, they can eat a wide range of foods, and they reproduce quickly enough for selective breeding to reshape a population over generations. But the story becomes even stranger. When domestic pigs escape and survive in the wild, natural selection begins pushing them in the opposite direction. Their behavior changes, their bodies may become tougher, their fear returns. The line between wild and domestic is not always a one-way path. The wild boar proves that domestication is not about replacing nature. It is about redirecting it. Humans did not create the pig from nothing. They took an animal already capable of changing and changed the pressures around it. But adaptability alone is not enough. The next animal reveals another trait that may matter even more: the instinct to follow. Number 7. Mouflon, the herd that was already ready to follow. Imagine trying to control 100 wild animals, not with fences, not with chains, but with a single decision. One animal changes direction, and every other member of the herd quietly follows. That is exactly what makes the Mouflons so remarkable. Long before humans ever thought about domestication, these wild sheep had already solved one of the biggest problems themselves. They lived as a society. Every herd depended on communication, trust, and leadership. When danger appeared, they reacted together. When the leader moved, the rest followed without hesitation. Humans did not invent that behavior. They simply learned how to become part of it. This is one of the hidden patterns behind nearly every successful domesticated herd animal: cattle, goats, sheep. None of them became manageable because humans forced every individual to obey. They became manageable because evolution had already taught them to cooperate with one another. The Mouflon, the wild ancestor of modern sheep, carried that blueprint long before the first shepherd ever appeared. Its instincts were not fighting against domestication. In many ways, they were quietly preparing for it. That does not mean domestication was inevitable. It still took thousands of years of selective breeding. But without a strong social structure, that journey might never have begun. Because before humans can guide an entire species, nature must first teach that species how to move together. But what if cooperation was not the only key? What if changing just one behavior could slowly change an animal itself? The next animal may be the closest thing we have ever had to watching domestication unfold in real time. Number 6. Silver fox, the experiment that changed everything. Imagine raising 2 foxes born just days apart. One retreats the moment you step closer. The other walks straight toward you, curious, calm, even wagging its tail. They are the same species. Yet over generations, one simple choice: breeding only the foxes that showed the least fear of humans. began producing something extraordinary. Researchers observed foxes becoming increasingly comfortable around people. Some eagerly approached their caretakers, some sought attention. Others even displayed behaviors that reminded many observers of domestic dogs, and the changes did not seem to stop there. As the generations passed, some foxes also showed differences in coat color, ear shape, tail carriage, and vocal behavior. It was one of the clearest demonstrations that selecting for behavior could influence far more than behavior alone. But here is the fascinating part. The experiment did not prove that any wild animal could become domesticated. It revealed something much more important. If the right traits already exist inside a species, natural selection or human selection can slowly amplify them over generations. Domestication is not magic. It is patience. It is choosing the same direction, again and again, for hundreds of years. The silver fox did not suddenly become a dog. It simply showed us how small changes, repeated long enough, can transform an entire population. But if behavior alone is not enough, what happens when an animal possesses extraordinary intelligence, remembers people for decades, and willingly works beside humans, yet still refuses to become truly domesticated? The next animal may be the greatest paradox of them all. Number 5. Asian elephant, the giant that never became domesticated. A single word echoes through the jungle. An elephant stops. Its enormous ears fall still. Its trunk lowers. Then, without hesitation, it walks toward the person who called its name. For thousands of years, humans have worked beside Asian elephants. They have carried supplies through dense forests, helped move massive logs, and formed partnerships that can last a lifetime. Some even recognize familiar voices after years apart. At first glance, this sounds like the perfect recipe for domestication. An intelligent animal, strong social bonds, the ability to learn complex tasks, a willingness to cooperate with humans. So why did elephants not become the next horse, or the next ox? The answer lies in time. Unlike sheep or pigs, elephants grow slowly. They do not mature quickly. They produce very few offspring during their lives. And for most of history, people trained wild-caught elephants rather than selectively breeding generation after generation for traits like calmness or reduced fear. That is the difference. A trained elephant is still a wild elephant. Its trust belongs to experience, not to thousands of years of inherited change. In many ways, elephants came incredibly close. They formed partnerships with humans that lasted decades. They learned. They remembered. They cooperated. But biologically, they never crossed the line into true domestication. The elephant reminds us that intelligence alone is not enough. A species also has to fit the rhythm of domestication itself. And that raises an even bigger question. What if an animal did not need humans to leave the wild, because humans chose to enter the wild instead? The next story is not about changing an animal's world. It is about changing ours. Number 4. Reindeer, the partnership that followed the seasons. Every autumn, thousands of reindeer begin to move, across frozen rivers, through endless forests, over snow-covered mountains. It is one of the oldest migrations on Earth, and for centuries, humans have followed. Unlike most domesticated animals, reindeer were never asked to abandon the wild completely. Instead, people learned something far more remarkable. They adapted to the reindeer's world. For generations, indigenous Arctic communities traveled with the herds, guiding rather than controlling them. The relationship was not built on fences or permanent farms. It was built on trust, timing, and survival. The reindeer already possessed many of the qualities humans look for in domestication. They were highly social. They could recognize familiar routes. They naturally stayed with the herd, and they tolerated living alongside people without losing the instincts they still needed to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. This was not a story of conquering nature. It was a story of cooperation. Humans depended on the reindeer for transportation, clothing, food, and survival. The reindeer, in return, benefited from protection and guidance along ancient migration routes. Neither side completely changed the other. Instead, they changed together. Few domestication stories are built on such balance. The reindeer reminds us that sometimes the strongest partnership is not created by taking an animal out of the wild. It is created by learning to belong within the same landscape. But the next animal tells a completely different story. It was not guided across mountains or trained through generations. In fact, its transformation may have happened almost by accident. Number 3. American Mink, the domestication. Nobody planned. Most domestication stories begin with a choice. Humans find an animal. They breed it. Generation after generation, they slowly shape its future. The American mink followed a very different path. It was not chosen because it pulled carts. It did not guard villages. It never herded livestock. Instead, humans brought mink into captivity for an entirely different reason. Yet something unexpected happened. Over many generations, living under human management began changing the population itself. Animals that handled captivity better were more likely to reproduce. Those that remained highly stressed often did not. Without setting out to create a companion animal, people were still applying selection. Slowly, almost invisibly, the population began to change. Some individuals became less fearful, some displayed calmer behavior around people, others differed in coat color and appearance from their wild relatives. It was another reminder that domestication is not a single event. It is a process. One generation may look almost identical to the last, but over decades, small differences begin to accumulate. Still, do not mistake that for complete domestication. Even after generations under human care, the American mink remains an incredibly capable predator. Fast, curious, restless, built for rivers, wetlands, and the hunt. Changing part of an animal's behavior does not erase millions of years of evolution, and perhaps that is the most fascinating lesson of all. Domestication does not replace nature, it negotiates with it. But what if a species did not need humans to capture it, because it had already decided to live beside us? The next animal never waited for an invitation. It moved into our world all on its own. Number 2. Rock dove. The wild bird that moved in with us stand beneath a city skyscraper. Look up. Dozens of pigeons circle above the rooftops before disappearing onto narrow ledges high above the streets. Now imagine those same birds, thousands of years ago. There were no buildings, no bridges, no towers, only towering sea cliffs. To a rock dove, a modern city does not look unnatural. It looks familiar. The concrete ledges resemble the rocky cliffs where its ancestors once nested. The towering buildings offer the same height, the same protection, the same perfect place to raise young. Long before humans realized it, the rock dove had already begun adapting to a world we were creating. Unlike many wild animals, it did not need to be forced into human settlements. It chose them. As people built villages into cities, the rock dove quietly followed. Its flexible diet made survival easier. Its strong homing instinct allowed it to return to the same nesting sites again and again. And its highly social nature helped entire flocks thrive wherever humans gathered. Eventually, people began selectively breeding these birds for communication, racing, appearance, and navigation. The result was one of the oldest and most successful domestication stories in history. Perhaps the greatest surprise is not that humans domesticated the pigeon, it is that the pigeon may have domesticated itself first, by deciding our world looked surprisingly similar to its own. Sometimes domestication begins with human intention. Sometimes nature takes the very first step. And no animal demonstrates that better than the one waiting at number 1. Its descendants sleep in our homes today, but its story began beside ancient campfires. under the watchful eyes of a predator that refused to run. Number 1. Gray wolf. The first step toward a new species. Picture a frozen night more than 10,000 years ago. A small human camp sits beneath the stars. The fire is fading. Children are asleep. Hunters have finished their meal. Beyond the edge of the light, a pair of yellow eyes watches in silence. It is not close enough to attack, but it does not run away either. That hesitation may have changed history. For generations, the boldest wolves likely discovered something extraordinary. Human camps offered opportunity, leftover food, warmth, protection from larger predators. The wolves that could tolerate people from a safe distance gained an advantage. Generation after generation, fear slowly gave way to curiosity. Curiosity became tolerance. Tolerance became cooperation. And over countless generations, natural selection and human selection worked together to create something the world had never seen before. The domestic dog. The gray wolf was not the easiest animal to domesticate because it was weak. It was because wolves already understood something humans understood too. Family, cooperation, communication. A wolf pack depends on trust. Each member watches the others. Each hunt demands teamwork. Each pup learns by observing older members of the group. Those same social instincts became the foundation for one of the most extraordinary relationships in natural history. Humans did not simply change wolves. Wolves changed humans too. They became hunting partners, guardians, travel companions. Eventually, they became family. Perhaps that is why no other domestication story feels quite the same. It was not built on cages, or force, or control. It may have begun with one simple decision, a single wolf choosing not to run, and a single human choosing not to chase. Together, they crossed a line that almost no other species ever would. For thousands of years, humans have looked at the natural world and asked the same question. What makes one animal stay, while another always walks away? This journey has never been about creating perfect pets. It has always been about something far more extraordinary. The rare moment when two different species discover they can survive better together than apart. The wild boar adapted. The mouflon already knew how to follow. The silver fox revealed the hidden power of selection. The elephant showed us that intelligence alone is never enough. The reindeer proved that partnership does not always require control. The mink reminded us that evolution never truly stops. The rock dove quietly moved into our world. And somewhere, beside an ancient campfire, a single wolf took one cautious step toward humanity. That one step would eventually change both species forever. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of domestication. It is not a story about humans conquering nature. It is a story about trust, earned slowly, across countless generations. So here is a question for you. If humans had never domesticated the wolf, which wild animal do you think might have become our closest companion instead? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey, like the video, subscribe to Wild Unknown, and join us for more cinematic stories from the natural world. Until next time, stay curious.